welcome back to the Law of Attraction Secrets podcast. I am your host, Natasha, and today we have one of my best friends, one of my favorite humans. He is the most unique, individual, compassionate, beautiful soul. He is not only one of the biggest photographers in the world, he founded people like Gigi, Hadid, and you're about to hear about all the other people that he founded. He's one of the most powerful individuals in Hollywood. He is involved, he's an entrepreneur, he's involved in venture capital, he's doing all kinds of things, and he genuinely helps so many people along his journey. People just like you. Today, you are going to hear from a very spiritually enlightened human. Welcome to the show, Jim Jordan.
Thanks, Tasha. Great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Love you.
Your beautiful words. Appreciate you.
Aww. So look, you are such a spiritually divine human. We prayed before we began. You are somebody who is very in touch with manifesting, with the way you live. You've had it all. The dream cars, the dream homes. You still have it all. The abundant life. But you told me once you had it all, but something was missing. What was missing?
I watched everybody around me for a long time, for many years, and I listened to the world that you have to be successful and rich and have fancy cars and homes and be best friends with all the coolest people in the world. And I worked really hard to get all those things and to obtain the beautiful things in life. And they are beautiful, and I'm thankful for them, but I knew there was something missing. Wow. And I knew, as hard as I worked, that I said, oh, if I could get this, I'll be happy. And if I could do this, accomplish this, it'll make me happy. And the happiness just stayed for a day or two. And then it was on to the next. I was running, looking. And I realized that there was something missing inside of me, and there was a hole that I couldn't fill with money or sex or partying or hanging out or being friends and travel. And I went on my journey, and I just started looking above, and I started looking. I go, maybe this is something to do with God. Maybe it has to do with spirituality. Maybe it has something to do that I haven't explored. And I ran, and I started looking, and I started calling in all the gods in my life. And I started going to Kabbalah, and I started going to Buddha, and I started going to Agape. I started going to Indian sweat lodges every full moon. I started journaling, doing the artist way and journaling every morning. And I started to stick my finger in the water in lots of different ponds and to figure out which one was going to really give me that peace and fill that hole. And so I ran on this wild journey around the world looking for the peace that was going to pass all of the understanding I had. And to just make me feel like, okay, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And I think that through these journey and just in my life that we all have a hole in us, and that only literally, I think only the spirit or source or God can fill. And it's an empty place in all of our hearts that is only made for that. And that if we invite that unknown and the spirit of God in that place, a lot of answers in our lives will change. Then we won't be on such a running journey just trying to keep up with the Joneses or try to look around at the world to see how the world's telling us that we need to be or live our life or what will make us happy. So that's kind of how that started. And it went really deep, and I went down the rabbit hole, and I'm still there, and I'm still looking and searching and seeking every single day.
So beautiful. I wondered, one of the things for you that happened in your life that really was a pivotal moment of shaking you up. Like, you went through, your story is crazy. Like, I would love to share some of that now. Just tell me the top level and work backwards. So today you are this globally known individual of many talents. You know, you find talent, you found talent. You found some of the biggest stars. Tell me about that, and then we're going to go right back to what happened.
So I've been a celebrity fashion photographer for many, many years, and I own a talent management company. I've been scouting models since I've been a young kid, 7th, 8th grade. And I started skateboarding, hitchhiking to all the schools and finding girls and guys I thought could be models. And I did their hair and their makeup, and I took pictures of them and placed them with agents all around the world. And I've been doing that. I ended up doing hair and makeup for photographers for 25 years. I worked with Herb Ritz and Patrick Demar, all the famous, Helmut Newton, famous photographers for a long time in New York and Paris and Milan, and did hundreds of covers of magazines and traveled with Elizabeth Taylor and Sophie Loren and Whitney Houston and Cindy Crawford and Naomi and Tatiana back in the 90s. And I started taking pictures of all these girls and collecting photos, and I ended up becoming a fashion photographer. And so I ended up getting an agent in New York representing me shooting, and I've had a very successful career shooting for covers of Vogue and Vanity Fair and Charlize Theron and Drew Barrymore and Zendaya and Kardashians, and I do a lot of campaigns, and I opened a talent management company many years ago, and I started going back to my roots, scouting models. And I discovered the supermodel Taylor Hill when she was 14 in a barn in Colorado, and put a world around her and catapulted her into stardom. I found Gigi Hadid at a swing set in Malibu and worked with her mother Yolanda and placing her with her agents in New York and made all her meetings for her. And I took Jeremy Meeks, the hot felon, the prisoner, out of jail. The light skin, they call him the hot felon.
Wow.
And I put a world around him and moved him in my house and started putting agents all around the world and traveled around the world with him. And I've just been kind of wanting to lift people up and wanting to help people because I see vision for people, and I try to get them to recognize what I see and to step into the space that I could maybe create for them to step into. And I've recently have moved into merging big entertainment companies into digital platforms and blockchain and different things like that. So I've been merging a lot of big IPs, entertainment IPs, into blockchain. And a couple of years ago, my life changed in the way of meditation and seeing my future. And I swim a mile every morning in my last 10 laps. I swim like 90 laps in this Olympic-sized pool. Wow, and my last 10 laps, I talked to God. And I was just like asking this one day for God to help me forgive people that had hurt me in my life. And I was naming some people that when I think of them, I don't want to think of the hurt, that I want to think of the love. Sorry.
Oh, that's beautiful. Talking about forgiveness is one of the most powerful things. People have no idea how to shift into a state of happiness and feeling love and purpose again goes through gratitude and forgiveness. Yeah. Forgiveness is like the entry point. The times when I felt most stuck in my life, I've had to sit down and just ask myself, who do I need to forgive right now? And it's always those strong names who hurt us the most. Yeah. But then there's others that come up. And when we forgive and when we let go and when we sit and say, I forgive you and forgive them, Father, they do not know. Forgive me. Forgive everybody involved. And it doesn't just happen one time. We have to do forgiveness every single day. And the more we forgive, the more we let go, the more that we release the pain surrounding that event and the feeling we have towards those people, the freer we are. It doesn't mean they will ever know. Yeah. It doesn't mean that they ever need to know they've been forgiven. But we set ourselves free so that we can live the life we're meant to, so they don't hold us back with these chains. We say, fuck you, not gonna let you hold on to me anymore, and I forgive you. And I let you go. And it doesn't mean we ever have to speak to that individual again. It just means we set ourselves free so that we may live the life we were born to live. So good. You were that?
And so I was just forgiving, naming names, and I got home the day from the pool, my phone rang. And I walked in my office, my girls were there. I was in my robe, I was gonna go shower and get ready for my day, and my phone rang, and it was a man that I hadn't talked to in 5 years. He stole $100,000 from me, and I looked at the phone and I was like, fuck him, I'm not picking his call up. And I heard a voice say to me, You were just praying to forgive people. And I was like, literally, like I heard a voice say that. And I picked up the phone and I'm like, him? And I picked up the phone. I'm like, hey, Morris, what do you want from me now? And he was like, Jay, oh my God, I can't believe you picked up my call. I've been calling you for 5 years to say I'm sorry to you. My whole life has changed. Please don't hang up. I got my wife back. I got my kids back. You're the only person I don't have in my life. He goes, JJ, I'm so rich. You have no idea what happened to me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where are you, in Australia? He said, no. He goes, I've been calling you for 5 years and you've never picked my call up, and I've been wanting to say I'm sorry to you and I have something for you. I need to see you. And I'm like, where are you? He goes, I'm in Las Vegas. I'm going to send a plane for you to meet you.
His life surely turned around.
So I'm like, what? So he picks me up, he sends a plane. I go to Vegas. He takes me upstairs and he said, I created the biggest gaming guild in the world, and we give games, children in third world countries, games to play to win Bitcoin. And we grew to 36 countries in the last 11 months. And I'm the top 10 seller on OpenSea. I've made $160 million in the last year and a half. And he goes, and I want you to win. And he goes, I've never met anyone with a bigger heart than you, and someone that works so hard for people and cares so much. And I'm one of those people that broke your heart. And he goes, and I'm giving you these 200,000 tokens to say I'm sorry. I go, what are tokens? And he goes, they're worth $7 each, and it's blockchain. And he's in the crypto blockchain world.
This is how you got into blockchain.
And he said, I'm here to teach you how to have a huge win like me. And he goes, and I want to teach you everything about blockchain, everything about digital currency, and about where the world's going. And he goes, and I need you to be ahead of this game. So I sat there for 10 days, and he taught me everything about crypto, about blockchain, about gaming, about NFTs, about all of this stuff. And he goes, I want you to go. He said, I own a company called Crypto Global United, and the richest man in Australia named Mark Carnegie is my partner, and we want to get behind you on anything you want to do. And I'm like, what do? I have no idea. He goes, go to your network. Your network is the biggest asset you have. You know everybody in the entertainment world, movie stars, producers, TV. So I went out to all the producers in LA that I work with. I went to my friend Jeff Jenkins. He owns Bling Empire, created Bling Empire, Kardashians, and we did a merger deal with him. And then I went to my friend who does American Ninja Warrior, Hell's Kitchen. I did a 5-year deal with them. And
around blockchain?
Yeah, about buying the digital assets to put on digital platforms. And then I did one called Mesha and the Bear. It's the biggest kids cartoon in the world. They get 160 million views a day, and we bought all the digital rights for all things blockchain for Mesha and the Bear. And then all these people started coming to me like, whoa, how are you doing all this? All this stuff's happening. And people were doing interviews, calling me the pioneer of the metaverse, this and that. And some of these big hedge fund people came to me and said, we need you to meet a man named Thomas Vu. He created the game League of Legends and a show Arcane. He won 18 Emmys for it. And I went to dinner with this man who created the biggest game in the world, this super humble, sweetest man. He sat with me at dinner and he goes, I saw your work. Like, how's your heart? Tell me about your heart. I don't care about all the shiny bells and whistles. I care about your heart. How are you? And I was like,
that is so beautiful.
Thanks for asking. And I says, I've never really been asked that by anybody.
It's beautiful.
And he was like, and I shared my life, how I got to where I had been, and he shared his life, and we were like in tears and hugging, and all the men at the table were like, what the fuck's going on down there? Did somebody die? Like what? And we're like, no, it's okay. It's all good. And he goes, I want you to teach me how to swim, and I want to come out to Calabasas, and I know you really know how to swim. I know how to swim, but I want to learn how you swim, and I want to teach you how to meditate and do breath work. And I go, so he starts coming 3 days a week. I swim with him. We go to my house, and he starts teaching me about tapping and moving energy through my body and about meditation. He starts mentioning a man named Dr. Joe Dispenza, that he was friends with Dr. Joe. So I spent like 2 weeks meditating, for doing these 20, 30-minute meditations. And then he calls me and he says, I'm going to take you to Niagara Falls to meet Dr. Joe Dispenza to a 7-day retreat. So I go to this retreat. I never meditated more than a month. And he takes me for 7 days to do this meditation. And after the 3rd day, he said, Dr. Joe wants to have breakfast with you. And I'm like, are you going to come with me? And he goes, no, I want you to be alone with him. And so I go to breakfast. And I meet Joe. And I share, he wanted to know my story because of Thomas had told him about the events that had happened in my life. And he wanted to hear them from me. And we just shared this breakfast and this beautiful time. And I went the rest 7 days. I left 7 days Niagara Falls, and my whole life had changed. And I left my old life there. And I created a new timeline, as weird as that sounds.
No, I fully get it. We've spoken about timelines on the show before.
And
You decided, I'm going to do this, and I'm on a different quantum realm right now. I'm in a different dimension.
I just stepped into a whole new thing. And when I got back, things started to shift and move before I left because I started this process. And at the retreat, it was hammered in me that I wasn't hoping for my future and I wasn't trying to get it, that it had already happened. Mm-hmm. And I already saw it. I saw it so clearly.
What did you envision?
I just saw that the roadblocks in my life were gone and I wasn't trying anymore. Yeah. I wasn't hoping for things and I wasn't wanting things that had already happened. And I just walked in the smell of it and the grace of it and the happiness and the joy in it. And all of a sudden, all these roadblocks that used to be there in this backpack I used to carry and struggle through the mud in life, it was just gone. I was light, and all the things started just coming so fast at me. And all of these miracles started changing and happening, and people showing up, and the coincidences, and
the stories
the
of
miracles,
your life.
and you coming in my life. And
the amazing stories you share that we need, we're going to have to do a part 2 at some point because your stories are, I'm so captivated by somebody's stories. That's why I love hanging out with you. I'm just tell me more. I just want to sit there and listen. Okay, tell me, let's go, because this is, we could go into the detail of this. You are now, as you can now see a very enlightened being, and he has amazing ways. Give me your ultimate morning ritual. What do you do?
I wake up at a little bit before 6 or 6, and then I seek the kingdom first. And I just sorry.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Sorry.
So beautiful.
I just said, God, I seek your kingdom first.
Wow.
And then I read my daily affirmations. I read these affirmations and I speak this out loud over myself, over my life. And then I turn on a 15-minute meditation, like a Dr. Joe, a guided meditation.
Did one this morning by him.
I put my blindfolds on and I sit up, and before I do that, I do these deep breath exercises where I do these really crazy breath exercises. And sometimes I take these deep breaths like I'm blowing candles out on a cake.
Oh, I love it.
And then I hold my breath and I tap.
You tap while you do it.
And I tap really hard and I bring the energy up and I hold my breath and I'm
so
go
high.
into another outer space. And I do that 3 times.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And
so
then
beautiful.
I do a 15-minute meditation. And then I run and get my swimsuit on and I go to the pool and I swim a mile.
Swimming's your thing.
Yeah. And I swim every morning. It's like being in water and the frequency of water and the things that are moving through the water is what I'm learning more and more every day. And so when I pray in the pool, after I swim, I meditate and I lose myself in the swimming. It's like another meditation for me. And then when I pray at the end, my last 10 laps, I just speak these frequencies into the water, and these things just manifest crazy in my life.
Water is very powerful. I go to the ocean 3 times a week, and I stand and I manifest over the ocean. I send out my energy to the furthest point of my awareness, and I feel that. And you can actually see on the ocean, above the ocean, there's this maybe more on the sand, you'll see it visually. You'll know what I'm talking about. There's something which Napoleon Hill and Joseph Murphy have spoken about, the invisible substance, and it floats above the sand. You can see it. It looks like gel. Some people will claim it's a heat wave, but how come not everybody can see it? It's there. It's like 6 foot sometimes, and it grows the more you're aware of it. So if you look along the beach and you see the invisible substance, that is where we imprint our thoughts into.
That's crazy.
All the time. But that where we're seeing is not just there, it's all around us. It's just a reminder to say, your thoughts become your things. Your thoughts become your reality.
Yes.
Everything around us, we are imprinting into that jelly-like substance. It's just the translation to the universe. So we're like, literally projecting our whatever we want, our feelings, our pictures of our life. So that's why when we think negative thoughts, boom, law of attraction, it attracts more of it.
Yes.
So when you project the good things around you and you the miracles and you believe in it, and the ocean and the water that you swim in is exactly that.
Yes.
It's where you multiply the miracles.
It's crazy.
What
And so I try to stay focused on that and stay connected to my rituals. But there are days I don't, and there's days that I'm human, and there's days that all the years I've lived one way that I forget. And sometimes I'm like,
I know.
there's so many times where I'm not living in what my know works just because of habit and going back.
Yep.
And I know seriously, like we want to do life in our own way and our own strength, and it's so hard sometimes to give it up and to remember there's like a source and there's a God standing right there, and their arms are open and they're like, I'm right here. I just want to just look at me, tap in, tune in, and turn on. I'm right here. And there's so many days I have my blinders on and I'm just trying to save my little life.
I know.
In
And
my
you go
own
back
strength,
into survival.
and then I'm like, oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. And so I try to remember and stay conscious, because sometimes I'm not conscious. And being conscious is a you know, it's a discipline. And doing those morning rituals and doing those morning prayers and doing the morning breath work and getting in the pool and fighting through, I'm too tired, I don't want to do it, or this is lazy, or life, or just pick up my phone and just start going to work the second I wake up.
As we all
And
do.
it's so tempting, and it's like Dr. Joe says, you need to tell the dog to sit and stay. And that's what I need to get better at, telling my animal in me to sit and stay. Because I'm running, and like an animal from a bear, I'm always running. I'm like in flight, flight, whatever it's called.
Fight or flight.
Fight or flight. And I'm in that state a lot in my life. But I'm learning, and I'm not where I want to be, but I'm not where I used to be, and I'm really grateful. And I have so many great people around me, and I feel the love.
Absolutely. You had a similar journey to me. You went through some addiction, right? You went through some crazy things in your life. How did you overcome that?
I went through, I wasn't really I was a huge like pot smoker, and I was.
Oh, so it wasn't like, you didn't have like okay.
I never had real drug addictions, but I've done a lot of mushrooms and shrooms.
But some of that stuff I don't think is bad. I don't think any of that's bad.
I've never really had substance abuse, or, you know, I drink a little bit here and there, and but I had a lot of tragic things happen in my life, and I've had a lot of scary things that have happened, and life lessons.
Tell me one of those. I know them, but share the one that's most prevalent to you, of like the whoa factor. Like, what you've been through, things which most humans don't go through.
Yeah.
Most people don't even experience some of the things that you have spoken about and are about to speak about. Tell me one of those times that was like, holy shit, like, I have a choice to be here. I'm going to get through this. Like, I'm in the darkest, scariest moment of my life.
So when I was a kid, I was in school, and I was taken out of school by this man. He literally took me out of my classroom, came in the class and told the teacher, was there a Jim Jordan here? There was a car accident in the parking lot that they needed to see me. And I knew this man was an older guy. He was friends with my older brother, and he was like literally a street fighter, gang member. And I was scared to death of this person, and the whole community where we lived was scared of this man.
Why did the
And
teacher allow him out of the class?
back in then, there were no cell phones. People were just super trusting. And he basically put me in his truck and took me away for 6 months. And he took me to the desert, and he saw that I was this young little kid that was bullied and picked on and not celebrated or wanted. And my family life was very difficult in the way of my parents didn't celebrate who I was as an artist and as a creative, and it scared them. And so my mom was always, taking me to doctors, putting me on medication, trying to get me to be the perfect son and the football star. And I was climbing trees and bonsaiing things and cutting the dog's hair and transforming every room I went in and beautifying everything I saw. And they were like, that's not my son. And so when he took me away, he told me he wanted to teach me how to be a man. And he took me to Death Valley, and he taught me how to, not being a man like sexually, he just was ostracized from society, and he knew really I was, and took me out into the desert for 6 months. And we lived in Death Valley, and he taught me how to drive and shoot guns and rob gas stations and rob restaurants and rob houses. He was in a street fight every single day, wanted to get in a fist fight in every day of his life. And I started to realize after the first week or so he wasn't going to hurt me, and that he felt that he needed a companion that was kicked out of life.
But you were the exact opposite of that.
And I was
just thought you liked.
And I was along for the ride, and I realized I'm either going to be out on the road with this man, or I'm going to go home and be medicated and beaten and tormented and not feel safe there either. And I thought I was more safe with him.
Did your parents not call the police?
Police were, everybody was looking for me. And so after 6 months of being on the road with this man, he took me home, and to not home, down the street, and dropped me off at 4 in the morning and said, it's time for you to go home. And I'm really moving the story really fast because we don't have a lot of time for details. And I ended up going home, and I was literally like completely masked over because I was being interrogated at where I'd been, and I didn't want to tell on him because I realized like this guy was my friend, and he was like a protector to me. Even though I was doing the scariest shit and watched him and thinking I was going to go to jail the rest of my life with him or be shot. I was 15, from like 14 to 15. And then I ended up coming home in the middle of the night, and the next morning my parents were trying to get me to talk, and a week later they institutionalized me and put me in a mental institution.
They thought you were crazy.
Because I wouldn't talk. And I was just kind of numb, completely numb, and not knowing how to say where I was. And all they wanted was to know everything. And so I was there for 6 weeks, and they started medicating me and getting me in therapy, and there was the girls and suicide kids. It was all adolescents in this psych ward at Northridge.
Oh my God.
And I was just there, like, not knowing who I was. And all I knew was that the only person that could help me, because my parents left me there, was him. And so I could make one phone call once a week, and I ended up calling him, his family, and he ended up coming. I said, I need to speak with him. Next Sunday I'll call. And he ended up coming and getting me out. And long story, I ended up becoming friends with the security guard. He let me bum cigarettes off him and stand in the emergency exit on the hospital floor, on the emergency exit, and I'd stand out there. And I told this man where I would be on the northeast side of the hospital at the emergency exit at 6 o'clock on Sunday night. And there was this big, huge security guard, and he was super nice to me. And he'd be like, you don't belong here. Why are you here? And I'd always have my hospital gown or like a turban in my head, or I'd have a sarong on. And I was this little hippie guy in the hospital, like, what's up? And he let me bum ciggies, and I told Gary where I would be. And when that 6 o'clock, I saw his car pull up on the street, and he came running like a Black Panther on and I turned the security guard to face me, and he grabbed him around the neck and threw him on his back. And he's like, run. And he ended up like literally beating this man up And I ran as fast as I could to his car. And then I was gone for a year, another year with him. And he was teaching me about being on the streets and how to become a survivor, and teaching me about prostitution, and took me to Sunset Boulevard to meet all the female prostitutes. And he was like, had money because he was stealing money. And that he would rent these two first time I had sex was with two prostitutes. And he sat in a chair and he smoked a cigarette. And he was all dressed up and he directed the whole thing. This is how this is done. And then the next night he took me to Santa Monica Boulevard to teach me about male prostitution. And he identified all the male hookers that were walking up and down Santa Monica Boulevard. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And he goes, you're going to drive the car. You're not doing anything, but you're going to follow me. And he pulled over on Santa Monica Boulevard and took his shirt off, lit a ciggy, got out and started hitchhiking. He's like, you're going to follow me in the truck, and I'm going to get in a car with one of these gay guys that are cruising, and you're going to follow us. And you're going to park down behind 5 cars. Just keep the headlights on. And he'd hitchhike right away. A guy would pull over, he'd get over, put his arm, scoot over next to him. And they'd go down all these side streets and alleys in West Hollywood. And I'd look and I'd park the car, they'd pull over thinking they were gonna, I'm like, what's he gonna do, have sex with this person? And I just see him just start pounding, beating the fuck out of these people.
Why?
To steal from them and steal their wallets and watches, and he'd come running back to the car carrying all his jacket, his clothes, everything, and just throw the wallet out, keep all the money, take the watch. And he did that like 3 or 4 times a night. And I was just watching this go down, all this crazy stuff, and I was
You've seen so much.
And then he started getting very dangerous and doing these really crazy things, and I thought he was going to turn on me one day because I was witnessing so much stuff. And I ended up getting out in the middle of the night, running home to my parents, and I broke the window out of my brother's car, and I stole his driver's license out of his car. And I ran away that night. The next day I went to a passport office, got a passport with my brother's name, and I was 15. And I remembered all the models I was finding were getting signed to Elite, and they were being sent off to Milan. So they said to me, go to Milan. You could do makeup and hair for photographers. So I always had that in the back of my mind when I was taken away with this man. If I could just get away and go to Milan, I could do makeup and hair and live in Italy. So
with the guy who had, the dangerous guy? No.
Not with him,
somebody
just get
else.
away
Yeah.
by myself. So I got a passport. I bought a one-way ticket to Milan. I had $1,500 to my name. My whole life I'd saved. And I bought a one-way ticket to Milan. And I ended up going there. And I ended up living in the park. And I was in the park for 6 months. And I was out at night doing all the things he had taught me. Going to the nightclubs and like vibing people and getting people to take me home. Get me out of the park so I could do terrible things. I could steal their jewelry. I could steal shit out of their apartment in the middle of the night. Sell it in the park, eat to get by. And that's when my life changed. Was I met some models there. 6 months later, never saw a model. It was terrible. Scary city, dark, cobblestones, couldn't skateboard. I was landlocked to the park. And then these models told me where their model agent was. And I went in there and I ended up meeting the owner of the man at the agency. His name was Luigi. And I had all these pictures that I'd been taking prior to me going.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I need help. And I've been finding models in LA, and here are some pictures of the kids I've been finding. And he goes, well, how can I help you? And I just stood there, I started crying. And I said, I need help, and I need to work. And I ran away, and I'm from California, and I'm a good person. But I've been living in like a really fucking dark life. And I want you to help me. He's like, how could I help you? I'm like, I could do anything. And he goes, well, I could do makeup, I could do hair, I could take pictures, I could scout models. And he goes, why don't you do makeup and hair? Look at these pictures. You did all this in these photos. Let me make meetings for you. I'll call photographers. There's so many magazines here. They love you. He gave me a big hug. He goes, come in Monday. I want to meet you, and I'll send you to meetings. That's it. I went Monday. He gave me money for a bus. He goes, I'm giving you bus money. There's a place called Montadori. It's like Condé Nast. Vogue's there, Harper's Bazaar, Elle, Grazia. They're all there. It's an hour and a half into the country. You get on the bus. Don't miss it. And at 5 o'clock, it comes back to Milan. Only 2 a day. Here's bus money. You go to Grazia. I called them. I told them it's nice kids coming, and that you just have these black and white contact sheets of these models you've been finding. So I went there, got on the bus, left all my stuff in the park in the bushes. I was driving out in the country. So I got on the bus and I went into the magazine, and this man was there, and he goes, hi, you must be Jim. I'm like, yeah. I go, I'm from California. I've been taking these pictures, and Luigi sent me here to show you the photos I've been doing, the makeup and hair. And this woman comes running in the room. She's like, ba, 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 screaming, like frantic. And he points at me. He goes, hey, can you go to work right now? And I'm like, what do you mean? I don't have anything with me. He goes, no, don't worry. She's saying the makeup artist, the whole team's upstairs in the studio, and the makeup artist hasn't shown up. It's over an hour late. Can you just go? He goes, we'll pay you $500, and we have everything upstairs in the studio. So I'm like, okay, I'll go. So I went up, and the model was there, this Canadian girl, Pam Pfeiffer, and I ended up doing my first hair and makeup for the cover of Grazia that day.
Oh my God. You went from zero to hero in one thing. Talk about right place, right time.
Yeah.
But the story you had to go through to get there. So what happened next?
And then they started booking me all the time, and I'd have lunch in the commissary there at a Montadori and Vogue and Elle, and the editors would always walk by at lunch, be like, who are you? What do you do? I'm like, I do makeup and hair, and I started becoming friends with the other editors of the magazines. Long story short, I was in Italy for 3 years, and I was working for Vogue and Harper's Bazaar and Cosmo and L'Officiel and tons. And I got like 20, 30 magazine covers and tons of editorial, and put a book together. Came back to LA when I was 19, thinking the coast was clear with this man. And I got an agent in New York, in LA and New York, representing me doing hair and makeup. And I started traveling right away with like Farrah Fawcett and Elizabeth Taylor and Sophie.
You were so young to be doing so much.
And Sarah Jessica Parker and Jeff Bridges, Nicolas Cage. And I just got into this Hollywood movie star hair and makeup center. I was working with Cindy Crawford and Naomi and Tatiana Petitz, and working with Helmut Newton and Herb Ritz, and like all the A-list photographers started making money and traveling and buying things, and just had this whole new life. And I started tapering in my little camera on my shoots and my makeup bag, and I'd work with Farrah Fawcett all day, and I'd be like, can I take pictures of you in the parking lot before you go home? Don't tell anyone. And I didn't want the photographers to see me taking pictures. And I'd be on the beach with Cindy Crawford and shooting her, doing for Bloomingdale's all day. I'd be like, Cindy, at lunch, let's walk down the beach and go swimming. And then we'd go down the beach, and I'd whip out my little camera, and like, can I take pictures of you? Don't let them see me. And I'd be like,
wow, and I've shot with you, so like I know your energy is insane.
And I'd be like, come on, don't tell anybody. And I started collecting all these pictures at my house. And I never wanted to be a photographer. I never thought I was good enough. The voices in my head were always saying, you don't know how to use a power pack or strobe or even work a camera. And so I always just collected all these photos for years in this black box. And I was working with J. Crew for years and years on all their shoots, doing the makeup and hair. The owner, Emily, of J. Crew used to always stand me next to the photographer and go, JJ, direct this shot. Like, get some energy in this shot.
Wow.
And then we were in Hawaii one year, and I was on the beach, and she called me over. She's like, JJ, get over here. And the model, this kid, Anthony Crane, was one of my dearest friends. He's like the J. Crew hero model, was dear friends with me. And he looked at Emily, he goes, why do you always have him fucking direct the shoots and do the photographer's job? Why don't you just have him shoot for you? And Emily's like, what are you talking about? He doesn't shoot. And he goes, yeah, he's a fucking baby. He shoots and he's amazing and he doesn't tell anyone because he's afraid that other photographers won't book him anymore. And he'll lose everything he's ever worked for. He's fucking amazing. And I look at Anthony like I wanted to kill him. I'm like, what the fuck? Shut, what are you talking about? And Emily looked at me, she goes, wait a minute. I've known you for 7 years. You cut my hair. You go on, you know my family. You've been everywhere in the world with us. And you've never mentioned one time you take pictures. I want to see your portfolio. I'm like, I don't have a portfolio. She goes, I want to see your pictures. I go, I just have pictures in a box in my closet. It's like my journal. It's like documenting people I get to meet and places I have been to. It's not like to show people. And I was like, the voices in my head were so scared. Like, you're going to lose everything. This is it. This guy just let the cat out of the bag. And I was just fighting, like, get away from me. It's not what you think it is. I was like trying to hit her, like, get the fuck out of here. Like, stop asking me. No. I'm like, you're not seeing it. She goes, listen, if you don't show, I go, it's just a black box of pictures. She goes, if you don't show me your black box of pictures, I'll never work with you again. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding?
That's the best ultimatum.
Like, are you joking? She goes, no, I'm not joking. You're coming to New York in 2 weeks. I want to see your black box. Done. I'm like, fuck you. I was just like, rawr. No.
That was the ego.
And then I go. 2 weeks later, I go to New York. I bring my back box. I get on my skateboard. I go up to the corporate office at J. Crew. I go over to the window. I throw it. She calls in all the art directors to look at my photos. They're like, wait, he has photos? Yeah, he's been taking pictures for years, they say. He's never told anybody. And I go over to the window. I'm looking out the window. I couldn't bear to look at them looking at my pictures. Like, the voices in my head were gnarly back then, and they were super scary and strong and made me feel I wasn't worth shit. And they started looking. She's like, oh my God. Tatiana, Naomi, Cindy, Farrah, Whitney. Like, screaming. They're like, what the fuck? They're like, get over here. So I go over and she has all these rugby players that I did this rugby series of the men that lived in the park in Italy. They became my friends. And it would be raining and I'd put mud on their face. I'd take their shirts off and tie them around their heads and do these beautiful portraits of these Italian soccer rugby players in the park because they were my friends. They'd smoke hash with me. They'd always see me on the park. They're like, who are you? And I'm like, I'm from California. And a ponytail. It's like this little surfer kid. I was like 16, 15. And I'd be like, can I take pictures of you? And I'd be like, hold this like this. And I'd be like, and I'd take all these crazy, and that's when I went to J. Crew. She had them all laid out. She goes, oh my God, these are unreal. This is what we want you to do for us.
Wow.
And she gave me my first job shooting J. Crew. And then after that, all these different things happened. She gave me a bunch of jobs and then forced me to go meet agents in New York. And I went kicking and screaming, no, I don't want to, I can't. She goes, it's time you lay your makeup brushes down. You're an amazing photographer. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to lose, I'm not. Kicking and screaming, finally went and met agents, got signed by an agent. A week later, I was shooting Bloomingdale's 14-day job. And then after that, I got a Vogue shoot. And then I started shooting for Vanity Fair and Harper's. And I got on this train, literally like this.
Of ascension.
This train, I felt like I got on this train and the door shut. And it just started going so fast. And I was shooting everything, traveling, Eddie Bauer, Land's End, Vogue, Elle, Harper's, making tons of money, like just on this crazy ride. And that was like another like timeline where my whole life changed again.
Wow.
But there's so much more, and I'm so grateful, and I've learned so much, and the scariest things that I've realized to come away with, that the most things that I'm the most afraid of are the things I need to run toward. And I believe that God is on the other side of the fire, and he's just calling us through the fire of our life. And he's like, and every time I walked through that fear, and I was so scared that I was going to fail, or so scared to even come near the edge of the fire. And when I just ran through it and gritted and ran through it, it was like, miracles opened up.
There we go.
And I was like, oh my God.
This is a really powerful thing you've just touched on, fear. and stepping through the fire of fear to get to the miracle, to the other side. So many of us get caught in the fear and the anxiety and the worry and stay there and live there. If you are only to get through those fears, however small, however big, you prove to yourself, oh my goodness, it's possible. I can get over this. I can get through this pain. And on the other side is something amazing waiting for me, my calling. Your calling literally calls you in like this, come to me. And you are going through the fire. Life is a series of ebbs and flows of obstacles that we must get through to get to the other side. And every day we see fear, which is this false evidence appearing real. Are we going to get through it? Are we going to push it? Like you had the biggest talent in the world as a photographer, but yet you were battling yourself inside. Really, you were just fighting yourself inside, projecting it out onto other people. No, no, no. But really, the fight was within you. And it was just you against yourself, saying, I can't do it. And when you pushed through, you became the biggest in the world. So if that is not giving somebody inspiration today, I don't know what is, because you pushed through the craziest times, more lows than most humans will ever go through in a lifetime. But I've realized lows and obstacles and fears don't happen to just everybody. You see somebody's life and you're like, really, they don't suffer from much. They probably do internally in other ways. But the biggest, worst things happen, the big illness, the big this, the big... I've been through my own trials. As you know, I went through an illness, which was terrible. And I went through a low of being in hundreds of thousands of debt. Terrible lows. Mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I kept at the time saying, why me? Why me? And then out the other side of the fire, I realized the why me. Because people like you and I are meant to share that with the world of how we overcame those traumas, of how we overcame those fears, those fires to get to the other side. When we have a voice, the calling is bigger. Come through. The calling is bigger. We are meant to go through those traumas. So on the other side, the reward is that much greater. So we will share it.
Yes, praise.
That's why it happens to us.
Thank God. It's so good. So those were the things, those were the wake-up calls in my life. Those were the things I stumbled on and was like, whoa, there's something to this fear. There's something to why I'm so afraid. That means those are the road signs. And then I realized, whoa, the things I'm afraid of most are the things I need to run toward.
Wow. So when you came out the other side, did you start doing any, now, because you've talked about you saw through the veil of the future when you were spotting these stars.
Yeah.
When you've built your life to where it is now, and you talked about your morning rituals, but what were you doing, visualizing? What powers were you tapping into to achieve the life you have today?
Like prior to I knew the law of attraction and these type of things.
Or at any time from across your entire journey, what are the things you found most potent, most powerful, that work for you?
It was just like the beauty of what I saw from my life. It was the beautiful things.
Yeah.
It was the visual things. It was the places I just saw myself living. Like I always knew I would have what I have without even a question. But I never knew how I would get there. I never knew what the destination would, how I ended up where I am. Like sometimes I'm in awe, like how did I get all this? How did this all happen? Like, you know, we could plant our ways. When I was a young kid, I was 5 years old. I was in a psychiatrist's office waiting to get a new medication. And I was coloring in a little coloring book, and my mom was there. And I just laid down the coloring book, and there was a stack of magazines. And I started looking at all these magazine covers, and there was a picture of Elizabeth Taylor dressed as Cleopatra on the cover.
I have it on my phone. Oh my God, this is one of my screensavers. I can't believe you're saying that. I have the picture right there.
And so,
No, but what are the chances that you're talking about the exact picture?
And it was like
it's saved under my looks, and it's the first one.
And it was a magazine cover, and she was that picture, and I stopped at it, and I stared at this magazine, like how she looked, and I was like in awe of the makeup and the hair and the way she looked. I didn't even know who she was. I was just like, what the fuck? And I was staring at the intricacy of her makeup and the all of it. And I heard a voice say to me, you're going to do that on every movie star in Hollywood. And that was when I was 5, and I never ever, it was just a voice that came in and left, and I never thought of it ever again. When I was 19, I got a call from my agent in LA and said, you're doing Elizabeth Taylor with Helmut Newton for a perfume campaign. And I went to her house in the Holmby Hills, and I went through her security and carried my makeup and hair bag up to her front door. I rang the door, and she answered the door with a big white towel in her hair and a white robe. Gave me a hug and asked me if I wanted tea. Her housekeeper was there next to her. We went upstairs. She laid out a big towel on her vanity in her bathroom. And she was like a mom to me. I didn't really know what a megastar she was and who she had been. And she sat down at her vanity, and I was unloading my brushes and hair. And I looked at her in the mirror, and that voice came back that I never thought of ever when I was 5. And the voice that said, you were going to do that on every movie star in Hollywood. And I looked at her, and I just started tearing up. And I was like, how did I get here? Like, God, how did you know that? How did you know? How did this journey end up this way? And tears were pouring out my face. And she's looking at me through the mirror. She's like, honey, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. I'm really good. And these are really happy tears. She goes, tell me what's going on. And I shared that story, what I just told you, that when I was 5, I saw a picture of you, and I heard a voice saying that I was going to do this on every movie star in Hollywood. And I'm standing here with you, and I'm 19, and I don't have any idea how God had this perfectly organized. And that God knew exactly that he was going to bring me through to this place. And I was like, this is crazy.
This is so beautiful.
It was crazy.
You've had so many full 360s. You've had so many moments of everything coming to fruition. You really are a living definition of a legend, but someone who has tapped into the universal laws so powerfully, and you understand them, you live them. This is so interesting. I love it. Can you tell me one thing that you would share with your younger selves? Like if Jim was standing there right now, the 14-year-old, and he was stuck in that place out in the desert, what would you tell him now from the future, from the successful, amazing Jim that you are now? What would you tell young JJ?
Just that it's okay to love yourself, and that you don't have to put your eyes on everybody else, that you deserve. And I spent most of my life just focusing on everybody else and not checking out and wanting to feel like what I'm really feeling, and just be really busy to not have to look at myself. And just self-love, taking care of yourself, stopping and learning and knowing, like what I'm learning now and what I'm still learning, and taking the time just to stop and give yourself a big hug and say, good job.
So powerful. Wow, I'm going to leave that beautiful moment as our final moment of today's show. I could talk to you for hours. I am so touched by your stories.
Thank you.
This is like the most beautiful storytelling episode, and I know that your words will have impacted so many people and helped them in ways that we probably can't even imagine. If it does impact your life and you do feel moved by today's show, please do, tag it on Instagram, on your story, and just write your points that you love the most. I'm going to put Jim's handles below so you can follow him, see his amazing work, feel his amazing presence and energy. It's a trip to look at his face in a good way. It's amazing. I've heard that used over here, trip. That's a positive thing, right? We say trip like it's a good thing.
Yeah.
You'll dive in and you won't come off it, because then you'll start seeing like, oh my God, he owns this magazine. Oh my God, he just had her on the cover again, and this one and this one. You're mind blown. Oh, and you might see my cover on there as well that we shot, which was so beautiful.
And many more.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm so
Can't
excited. Thank you so much for
Thank you,
being here.
Natasha.
We love
We
you.
love you.
The Law of Attraction Secrets welcomes you anytime.
Thank you.
And we can't wait for your book.
Thank you so much.
You have that. I can feel it. I can
love
feel it into existence.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's make it happen. Thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. This is The Law of Attraction Secrets. I'm your host, Natasha Graziano, and we'll see you again next week.